The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday, a weekly program providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and today is Tuesday, June 8th. Coming up, New York City public schools are set to reopen in September. We'll discuss how educators and students are preparing for the big day with the Bronx principal, Torres. Then we'll meet one of the Latinas behind the prosecution team who helped secure Derek Chauvin's guilty verdict in the murder of George Floyd. After that, we'll discuss how this past year has affected our mental health and learn how to sustain ourselves mentally and emotionally beyond the pandemic with Montefiore. And Miss Abbie's Kids seeks to build a healthier, more sustainable Bronx child, and they do this through their youth and senior programming. Stay tuned to find out how you can get involved in their community center campaign. So please stick around. Open BXRX Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. Mayor Bill de Blasio recently announced that New York City public schools will fully reopen in September in person without a remote option. How are educators feeling? How are Bronx schools preparing? Here to share this and much more is the Bronx principal and principal of PS 55 here in the Bronx, Torres. Thank you so much, Principal Torres, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I love BronxNet and I love being on this show.
We love you too, and we love the Bronx Education. So thank you always for your time and your work in the Bronx. So, the first question right off the bat, how are you and your teachers and staff at PS 55 feeling about fully reopening this fall?
Well, I think, I can say that people are excited. We've been waiting to get back. We've been hoping to, have the children in front of us. We're excited, but of course, there's always going to be a little caution there too, right? We're a little bit afraid of what's to come. But having the children back in the building is going to be something that I look forward to experiencing again. And I look forward to having my teachers back as well. But, it's going to come with a little bit of nervousness.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, how are you preparing to reopen and ensuring that both your staff and your students have a safe transition back to in-person?
So I'm preparing by making sure that all the resources and things that the teachers are going to need to be successful are in place. We moved our cafeteria to the first floor. We're hopefully going to have our parking spaces available for teachers to come back. We're creating safe, nurturing spaces throughout the building where people can come just to relax and to focus and to have, time for them to refocus and relax.
Now, Principal Torres, Mayor de Blasio did state that there is no remote learning option. Are there any exceptions to this? And can you share?
So right now, as he stated, there are no remote options, but of course, the city will figure things out as we get closer to the time of reopening, and we will see. I know that there are some students that, because of their health conditions, won't be able to return. So of course there will be some remote options for those students. But they're making a clear a message that everyone is to come back to the school, and that's how we're preparing and we're planning that everybody will be back.
And when we do, something we've been talking about during the pandemic, especially when it comes to remote learning and education in our borough, is the challenge of tech issues and tech disparities in the Bronx. Can you tell us a little bit about how that challenge has affected you and your students and staff at PS 55?
So the tech issues have always existed. The pandemic just made it more visible for more people to see what was really going on. The great thing about the Bronx is that we really push forward, and thanks to Ruben Diaz Misha Ross Porter, and others, we were able to successfully put devices in every child's hands. Then we found out that the internet was an issue. You know, there were shelters that did not allow for internet access. There are dead spots throughout the Bronx. So together with the help of the borough president and our chancellor and others, we were able to start to identify these areas. And now we're working on providing hotspots and other options for the families.
Right. And something we were speaking about offline is the challenges one of your students recently faced. Can you tell us a little bit more about, that the real life challenges that students are facing, just so that folks who are home can also understand that the tech disparity that has affected our borough is serious and is needed.
So early on, we started to find out that we had students that were going to like the local laundromat and to other areas just to be able to access the internet. And, for me, that's very sad that, a child would have to go to a laundromat to access the internet. So we've been fixing those issues, providing hotspots and other things. But, the reality is the inequities of the world continue, and we have to make sure we continue to push back and fight for equity for all children. No child should have to go to the laundromat to do homework. That just that's unacceptable. That makes no sense to me.
Thank you for sharing, Principal Torres. And going back to the reopening plans for schools, what are the mask guidelines now for students? And will there be testing access at all Bronx public schools, including PS 55?
So here at 55, we've been doing testing way before people started doing it because we have a Montefiore clinic in the school building. We're going to continue to do the testing all the way through. We're going to continue to monitor the CDC. And respect the guidelines and the things that are passed forward right now. We're looking at mask restrictions still being in place in schools, but who's to know? By next month, that can change. So we're just going to continue to monitor what the CDC is saying, what the chancellor is saying, and we're going to continue to do everything in our power to fight this pandemic and get back to where we need to be so that we can be successful for our children.
Let's say that someone does test positive in the school, whether that be a teacher or a student. What is the plan and the protocol in place if that happens?
So right now, we have classroom closures, we have school closures based on positive rates, depending on who's been affected, who's been exposed. I envision that continuing when we get back in September. But of course, we're going to look to see that it's going to start to go down, right? Because the more and more people are being vaccinated, and the more and more we continue to prepare, we should be ready for anything that comes forward. But I don't anticipate it being a big problem in September, the way it was when the pandemic was in full swing.
And, just, to put that out there as a scenario, Principal Torres, if that does happen, then remote options would have to return. No, that would probably be the solution, I guess.
Yeah, I see that there are going to be opportunities for remote options. I believe the snow days are over, right? Remember how you used to get the snow days off? We used to look forward to that.
Yes.
That's an opportunity for a remote day, I'm going to be looking to have parent meetings and things like that remotely. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for remote. It's very important that we don't throw away something that was successful and innovative, right? The technology showed us that there are a lot of great things that the technology brings. I mean, restaurants, you saw how, takeout has become a big boom. And I don't anticipate a lot of these things going away. In fact, we should look at these things and build on them because there's a lot of opportunities for technology to continue to be a big piece of our educational programming.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And something else I would love to highlight now that we have you here, Principal Torres, is something else that's innovative here at BronxNet, thanks to you and the efforts of so many educators in the Bronx and throughout, the boroughs. Bronx Education. Can you tell us more about it and how it's been going and what your hopes for the future are with this amazing programming for our students in the Bronx?
I just want to say thank you to BronxNet, Michael McNaby, Estefania, Bernardo, the whole BronxNet team. Chancellor Misha Ross Porter, Timothy Coleman, everyone who's been part of the Bronx Education. It was an amazing effort. This came about from the pandemic. It's something that we wanted to do to ensure that all children had access to education, whether they had internet access or not. They can turn to the Bronx net channels and they can see educational programming. Teachers stepped up, parents stepped up, counselors, everybody just came out. And it's just been an amazing run. I look forward to continuing this work and see where the Bronx Evolution takes us, because it's needed during this time.
I'll definitely agree with that. And I wanted to also bring up that the Chancellor will be holding a Bronx Engagement Forum. Principal Torres, can you tell us more about this event and how families can sign up for it?
So we have an amazing Chancellor. She's from the Bronx, Misha Ross Porter, and she's been doing amazing work. She stepped right in and she's taking us out of this pandemic in a great way. She's always looking for ways to engage the community and get their feedback on things. The Bronx Engagement Forum is just another opportunity for her to connect with the community and to see what we're talking about, what we're thinking, as well as which way she wants to lead the system. She's a leader that takes in all the feedback from her constituents and the community, and she turns it over into practice and doing great things for our communities. So I'm excited about that forum. It's going to be a great event.
And this is a Bronx-specific forum, right, Principal Torres? There are different ones happening around the borough. So parents, just so that we get more understanding, can come in, ask questions, hear feedback, give feedback, and all that in these forums, no?
Yeah, usually there are questions or things submitted, and there'll be opportunities for the parents to engage. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be different ways that the parents can engage. But knowing Misha Ross Porter, she takes the words of the parents and the community to her heart, and whatever is discussed during this day will come out in practice and do something for our communities. I'm just so happy that she's connecting with the Bronx in a very strong way as a chancellor.
And one last thing before we go, how else can families voice their concerns and share feedback at this time? I know there's also a survey around.
Yeah, the survey is a very important piece. People don't realize how important the survey is. You can go to the DOE website, you can find the survey on there. And it's very important that people fill out the survey. Schools look and use the survey to guide the work within the schools. The system uses the survey to make system-wide decisions. But don't take it lightly. I read every survey that is submitted from my school. Sometimes I read 300, 400 surveys because I want to know what people are thinking. It makes no sense for us to lead a system, to lead a school or school system and not be meeting the needs of the people that we're serving. So the survey is very important. I tell everybody, make sure you do that survey. You have no idea how important that survey is to us.
Thank you so much again, Principal Torres, for joining us today. And thank you for your leadership in the Bronx. And, best of luck to you and our teachers and educators and our students with the reopening coming up soon.
And I appreciate you and much success to your show. You're doing amazing work. Thank you.
So much. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption
of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Torres.
Welcome back. May 25th marked a year since George Floyd was murdered. Former Minneapolis officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty of all charges. And behind the prosecution team in Chauvin's trial were two Latinas, and one of them is here with us today. Suri Balmakund-Santiago, raised in El Barrio, Spanish Harlem, served on the prosecution team in the trial of Derek Chauvin. Welcome, Suri. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sanji. It's honestly a pleasure to be with hometown and family.
It's a pleasure having you here, and I'm excited to hear that you're from El Barrio. That's incredible and super inspiring for so many of our youth here. So thank you for the work you do.
My pleasure.
Of course. So Suri, first, what does forming part of the prosecution team in the Derek Chauvin trial mean to you as a lawyer of color and Latina?
So honestly, Sanji, it was such a huge, an immense privilege to be a part of this team as a Latina. You know, this team was highly diverse, and that was because Attorney General Keith Ellison had this vision. He saw into the future. He was able to read the tea leaves about how important it would be to have diverse representation on this trial team that's supposed to be representing justice and accountability for the community. We had representation from every walk of life, from every experience level, as well as racial and ethnic background representation. And it was an honor to be a Latina representative on this team, as well as with my colleague, Lola Velasquez Aguilo.
Yes, also another Latina on the prosecution team. So, you know, we're very honored and inspired by your work and representation of our community in this incredible, jury and verdict. So Suri, I'm curious, how did you prepare for this trial? In what ways was it different from your past trials? And did you face any particular challenges with it?
You know, trials are known for being meticulous work. They're time consuming, they are detail oriented, and every trial gets all of me. But this trial was different because it was on a national platform. And so we didn't have the luxury of being able to make mistakes, of being able to say, oh, we didn't quite get to that. We worked day in and day out to make sure we knew that case file like it was the back of our hands. And it was a very arduous but rewarding process. As far as challenges, this is a unique case in terms of bringing law enforcement to the forefront and requesting accountability from the justice system. And so when we were preparing this case, we didn't know who was going to be available to us in terms of witnesses. We didn't know what they were going to say. And this case is historic because we have a police chief, Chief Madera Heredando, who was willing to publicly say, This is not behavior that is acceptable from the Minneapolis Police Department. This is not going to be tolerated from our police department, which is a huge point for the Minneapolis community. And he wasn't the only one. He also had a number of his colleagues join him on the stand to say, this isn't how we function in this community, and you can expect better from us.
Thank you so much for sharing, Suri. And, you know, many people say that while justice was served that day, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to dismantle racism in the justice system. What needs to happen to make this progress?
You know, I say a lot of this work starts far before we reach the courtroom. This kind of work starts with grassroots efforts. The whole reason that this case was in the office of the Minnesota Attorney General was because the community asked for that. The community requested that Attorney General Keith Ellison represent them and represent this case. And because the communities had such a powerful voice, they were able to influence history. And that's really what's needed to see social justice and justice reform in the future. And also, we'll see that with legislation like the George Floyd Act.
And we also wanted to emphasize, Suri, on the importance of representation and diversity in law. Why is it so important, and how did you make this a priority in your role as president of the Minnesota Hispanic Bar Association?
Sanji, I'm so glad you asked this because I've been with the Minnesota Hispanic Bar Association for 9 years. And now I'm immediate past president of the organization. And it was a labor of love to be a part of that organization. You know, representation is power. And we do not have enough ethnic and diverse representation in government right now. That is why it's so important for Latinos and Latinas to become more involved in their government and to strive for a profession in the legal sector if that's something that they would like to do. Right now, only 4% of the legal community in the nation is Latinx.
Wow.
2% is Latina. And Minnesota has the lowest high school graduation rate for Latinos in the country. So, you know, we start our pipeline projects very early, beginning with preschool. We mentor through middle school, high school, undergraduate, and law school. Because so few of us have made it to the profession, we understand the necessity for that reach back to help these young Latinos succeed in the profession.
And I hope that those young Latinos are tuned in and learning and being inspired by someone like you. I'm very curious, Suri, how did a young Latina from El Barrio in Spanish Harlem wind up in law, and how did this shape you on your path and lead you to Minnesota?
Yeah, I didn't want to go into medicine, and I had two options. But, you know, I actually chose from a very early age to follow the legal profession. And really, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have any lawyers in my family. I didn't have anybody I could talk to. But I understood even at a young age that lawyers were able to influence lives in a way that everyday people may not be able to. And I wanted to be at the table to be able to influence lives in a positive way and give back to my community in the areas that I know are needed. And that's why I became a prosecutor. I went back and forth on whether I should become a public defender or a prosecutor. And for the reasons I stated, I decided to go into prosecution. You know, growing up in Spanish Harlem, and I should clarify, I moved when I was quite young, but our family is still there. That is a part of my background. I'm highly loyal to New York, and I consider it my home. And so growing up with that background really influenced why I decided to go into law and why I decided to serve my community. I want to be a government lawyer, and I'm practicing as a government lawyer because I think it's the right thing to do. And that's why I've committed my profession to doing it.
Wow, what a success story, if we know one, right? So, Suri, what do you hope that our Latino community learns from serving justice against injustices like what happened to George Floyd?
I hope that the Latino community sees this as a point of accountability and working in the right direction. The verdict in this case was not the answer. The verdict in this case is not the end of this story. It's the first step. And there's so much work to be done. which is why I went back earlier to talking about the grassroots efforts that really make a difference within our communities. And we have so many influential pillars in our community, such as Dolores Huerta, for example, that are prime examples of how powerful grassroots efforts can really be to influence change. So again, this is just the beginning. Whatever we envision, we can make that happen as long as we exercise our voices to do that.
Suri, I don't want to no quiero ignorar your other last name, Balmakund. You're mixed. Where else are you from? Where's your family from?
So, mi mamá es puertorriqueña, and then my dad is from, sorry, I went back into my Spanglish. So mom is from Puerto Rico, and my dad is from South America in Guyana. So he's Caribbean Indian. So I'm a Caribbean baby through and through.
Representando for the community. And you know, we have a large Guyanese population, large Puerto Rican population here in the Bronx. So they're like tuning in like, Wepa, esa es una de nosotros. That's one of ours.
Absolutely. And both sides of my family are in New York. And, you know, again, it's home. It's where we are.
We miss you out here.
Oh man, I want to go back so fast, so soon.
You're always welcome back, and always welcome back here at BronxNet as well, Suri. Before we go, what message would you give a young person who aspires to have a career in law like yourself?
This is not going to be an easy path. I want to tell you that from the beginning, but it is worth it. I mean, you really have to commit yourself and tell yourself, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to make it happen no matter what. And there are people in our community that want to see you succeed and want to support you. And even if you don't live in Minnesota, my contact information will be shared with you. And the contact information of the Minnesota Hispanic Bar Association will be shared with you. Please contact us. I'm happy to speak to any Latinx law student that is considering going to law school, because you need a support network and you need your community. And we are more than happy to be there for you.
Suri, it's been such a great pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much for making the time to join us on our show. This is the silver lining, you know, from learning this pandemic tech, you know, thing. We can connect all the way from Minnesota to the Bronx to Harlem, and it's incredible. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. It was great to be with you. I'm wishing you all of the best.
Likewise. Thank you so much for working in our community. Again, Suri Balmakund-Santiago is the Assistant Attorney General at Minnesota Attorney General's Office, and she was one of 2 Latinas in the prosecution team in Chauvin's trial. We are very proud of her. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday. This year, New York City began using ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local offices, such as mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. Ranked choice voting means that voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference, instead of casting a vote for just one. You can still vote for just one candidate if you prefer. So, how will your ballot look? Your ballot will look the same as always, except now there will be a checkbox with ranking numbers depending on how many candidates there are in a race. So how does it work? If your first choice gets over 50% of votes, they automatically win the race. If none of the candidates get more than 50% of votes on the first round, then the candidate with the least amount of votes gets eliminated, and the votes get recounted again in a second round of counting. Here's an example. Let's rank colors. I like blue the most, so I'm marking it 1. I like purple 2nd, green 3rd, and orange 4th. Okay, my votes are in. Now other votes are counted, and the results are as follows. Blue earned 36%, purple earned 27%, green earned 19%, and orange earned 18%. As you can see, none of these colors earned more than 50% of the votes. So the one with the smallest amount of votes gets eliminated. Voters who chose orange as their first choice now have their votes distributed to their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives 50% of the votes and becomes the official winner of the race. That's it. That's ranked choice voting. Ready? Let's vote. When we discuss the long-term impacts of COVID-19, we often discuss the physical implications and side effects, but leave out the effects on our mental health. Joining us now to discuss is Dr. Jenny Seham, psychologist and director of Arts and Integrative Medicine at Montefiore Medical Center. Welcome, doctor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me and for doing this really important topic.
Absolutely. Thank you. We appreciate you being here with us. So, doctor, to start off, how has COVID-19 impacted mental health a year into the pandemic? What are studies showing us?
Yeah, they've very quickly done studies on the impact of the pandemic on our mental health. And everybody listening to this broadcast and watching this broadcast knows that our mental health was impacted. It's been stressful. It's been hard. It's been agonizing. What the study showed is there's been an increase in anxiety, an increase in depression, also in fatigue, insomnia, even substance abuse. So a year later, we are still seeing some of these aspects that are really an impact of the pandemic. I want to be very careful to say that the good news is, along with the stressors of the pandemic, have also been an increased awareness, and many organizations, including the CDC and the Office of Mental Health, have increased services for mental health. So what we're really hoping to see is that people's mental health improves as a result of their resilience in going through a pandemic.
Wow, sounds like there's a silver lining to all of this. So thank you for sharing, Dr. Seham. What are some of the signs and symptoms or indicators that something is up with our mental health? Can you share?
Sure. Yes. Really, the most impactful sign is just not feeling yourself, feeling like yourself, feeling that you are more tired than usual, and that's been going on, that you just don't have the energy that you've had before, that you're worried constantly, either things that you notice or things that your partner or your children or your friends may have pointed out to you. And so really the strongest indicator is that you just don't feel like yourself. So that's something to notice, really taking your temperature and seeing how you're doing and see how long that goes on. If it's a day, 2 days even, then and you recover, that's okay. But if that goes on day after day and as long as 2 weeks, that's a time that you might want to really seek out professional help.
Right. Very important to point that out. Thank you, doctor. So something that Montefiore Einstein has studied is also the significant proportion of healthcare professionals, particularly at the epicenters, were experiencing unprecedented levels of anxiety, insomnia, depression, and distress. Can you share more about this study and how Montefiore is helping staff?
Well, absolutely. As you mentioned, Montefiore became and still is an epicenter for COVID and for treating COVID. So this created quite a burden, quite an enormous impact on our frontline workers. High levels of stress, anxiety, depression, fear, and grief in seeing what they saw and seeing not only the patients, but seeing them isolated from their families. And sometimes our frontline workers, our doctors, our nurses, our social workers, our respiratory therapists became surrogate families and having their own families at home to take care of. So stressor upon stressor upon stressor definitely took its toll. And I'm glad to say that Montefiore, really, the Department of Psychiatry, jumped in as quickly as possible to provide many levels of service to take care of the stress and take care of these individual workers, beginning with a hotline so that at any moment, whether they were at home or whether it was during a work day, they could pick up the phone and call and speak to a professional, a clinician, and just talking through some of the stress and also getting resources. We also had allies. So we were partnered up with some of our frontline workers to say, now you know who I am and I'm your ally, and call whenever you need help. Again, to provide resources, to provide some psychological first aid. In addition, we supplied some ongoing therapy. If people, as I mentioned before, if people were noticing this is going on, I need a little more significant help, we had people on standby to provide that professional therapy and even medication for people who needed it. And finally, I think really important to mention, and this is something that is ongoing, is we had emotional support groups for some of the teams who had been doing this incredible work, working with families, teams who were, again, doctors, nurses, social workers, respiratory therapists, and bringing them together in an emotional support setting, both in person and then ongoing online. Because what we know that research has said is when you speak with your colleagues, almost like soldiers on the front line, that you really derive the most significant support in hearing from others who truly understand what you've been through.
Yes. I really want to emphasize to our viewers, that our caretakers, our healthcare workers need caretaking as well. And our therapists need therapy too. And that's something that this pandemic, has taught a lot of people that, just because someone takes care of you doesn't mean that they don't need it as well. So I just wanted to emphasize that. So of course, Dr. Montefiore has provided healing through the arts. And I know that you're involved in a particular program called the Youth Empowerment Series. Can you share more about this program?
I would love to. It's my favorite topic because it involves our Bronx kids making art, taking photographs. And this is a photo of the Yes Garden that we just were able to start up again for the first time. We have families and youth. So here are the vegetables and flowers we're about to plant. This is our last week was the first time we came back in person. We've been ongoing creating art online, and we've been ongoing taking photographs and sharing them and creating online galleries. But now we are putting our hands in the dirt. And I think there's nothing more enriching, there's nothing more healing than planting. And then what we will do is serve our families and invite them to partake in what the kids have grown.
I love that. I know something you shared earlier on, doctors, that the kids are growing strawberries and they want to grow chamomile. You have strawberries.
Yes. I have them right here. I'm bringing these to the garden tomorrow. So the kids are growing, so the Youth Empowerment Series, the whole purpose is that it is their voice. It is their decision on what they want to create. And so we are providing the plots. We are providing the ground. One of our kids said, dearly wants to plant strawberries, so we will plant strawberries. And another one of our kids, really, I think she's an entrepreneur, wants to plant things that she can make tea, which she feels is healing. She and her mother actually are participating. So we have chamomile and we have lemon verbena, and delicious. Come over to the garden.
I'll be there. I will be there. I'm visiting one of these days. Thank you for sharing that. Talk about getting grounded, going back to your roots and back to the ground to work on gardening. So doctor, some folks are tuning in and maybe wondering, how can we maintain good mental health, especially in these times? Can you just share some healthy ways to cope with us?
Absolutely. And again, as we said before, these are tips for during a pandemic, but for always. And so important. Number one, connect with others. So the garden is a great example. We see the kids talking with each other, sharing this interest. Connect with others. Call your friends. Call the friends who are supportive and the family members who are supportive. Take care of your body and your mind. I can't emphasize enough how much it heals your mind and heals your psychological health to get moving, whatever that means. Getting up, taking a walk, dancing, putting on some music and dancing, whatever that means to me. Yes, whatever that means to move around. So really taking care of your body, and start small if you need to. Don't worry about what you used to do. Just get active and get moving. Take breaks. Take a breath. Take breaks from what your responsibilities are. That I think people are feeling very overwhelmed, especially with school starting up again, or deciding now it's the summer and things are opening and what do I have to do, and I have to catch up. So it's okay to go slow and take a break and take a breath and do what you need to do, what feels good for you. So taking breaks, please limit news and social media. Can be really toxic. There's so much that's great. There's so much online that's wonderful and entertaining and and healing and soothing. But there's also, if you repeat and repeat and repeat negative stories, please listen to the experts, get your information, be empowered, turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, seek help when needed. So if you are reaching out and doing everything that you can think of to really find joy and to really connect and to move your body and to stimulate your mind, and you just still need a little bit extra, then please reach out and seek professional help. Really important. There are people here to help you with that.
Doctors, thank you so much for reminding us of all those, little tidbits that we can do to just take it one day at a time. I definitely got some ideas. I started breathing while you were telling me to just take a breath, slowing down, because I know I can also stress myself out sometimes, and it's important to take those breaks for self-care. It's something that we're all learning about every day. So without further ado, how can people stay in touch with Montefiore and reach out for more information and help at this time?
So Montefiore has a wonderful website and many resources. We have a relaxation hotline. If you want to know more about our art program, there's the Montefiore Fine Art Program. That'll take you straight to the Youth Empowerment Series Gallery, which is in the main lobby of the Moses campus. Please look us up. There are many, many resources at Montefiore for your emotional health and well-being, for relaxation, for meditation, for the arts, which I'm so proud to say that Montefiore includes in all their healing and medical care. They really open their arms to know that sometimes it's music and dance and meditation and artwork that people need in their lives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Seham, for your time today. And thank you to Montefiore for your partnership and your work in our community.
Thank you.
Of course. Again, Dr. Jenny Seham is a psychologist and director of the Arts and Integrative Medicine program at Montefiore Medical Center. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday. Welcome back. Miss Abbie's Kids believes in building a healthier, more sustainable Bronx child. And in order to accomplish that, they're launching a new campaign to build a community center in the most devastated area of the Bronx. Let's check out this clip.
At Miss Abbie's Kids Community Center, everyone from the youth to the elders and all in between get to partake in classes, workshops, programs, community meetings, and events designed to build a stronger, more sustainable Bronx child.
With the Bronx being the worst performing county in all of New York State's 62 counties regarding healthcare, education, criminal justice involvement, and crime, we know that building a community center that does not already exist will help our children flourish and help protect our seniors.
That sounds incredible to me. And now we have Miss Abbie's Kids Executive Director, Shanequa Charles, and Youth Programs Coordinator, Miracle Robinson. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate, first of all, the work that you do at BronxNet and being one of the outlets in the Bronx that always leads with integrity. And so we really appreciate being here today.
Thank you so much for that, Shanequa and Miracle. And, we appreciate you and your work with our youth and our seniors as well. As we saw in that clip, you're doing so many wonderful things for our community. So thank you for coming on to share that. So without further ado, can you tell us about Miss Abbie's Kids and your mission?
Absolutely. So Miss Abbie's Kids, builds a stronger, more sustainable Bronx child through real world teachings. And what that means essentially is that we focus on all of the things that are not taught in the schoolhouse, that are not a part of a curriculum that really, really seeks to make sure that our young people in devastated communities like ours have access to resources that, our more affluent counterparts have. And it's been an undertaking for the last 9 years. We were finally able to build a community center about 10 months ago. It's been closed down for about 2 months now, and we're looking to launch this campaign, build a new community center, and offer all of the things that we're missing here in our communities, like financial literacy, martial arts, mentorship, entrepreneurialism for young people, civic engagement, the list goes on and on.
Thank you for sharing, Shanequa. And, like many programs, Miss Abbie's Kids has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you share how, the pandemic has impacted your services and your hopes for the community center?
Yeah, so one of the beautiful things, thank you for that question. One of the beautiful things that have transpired over the last 10 months is that right during a pandemic, we were able to open a community center, in our area that suffered the most, with rampant numbers of homeless, unhoused people, of increasing, and the number of young people that were non-supported because they couldn't go into a school, and community members that starved during this pandemic. We were able to offer services that weren't available anywhere else. Unfortunately, we had to close our doors because we were not able to meet the threshold of an incredibly high rent and not have the supports necessary in our community to really help our organization sustain the community center. Hundreds of young people and their families have been impacted by it not being around any longer. So this time we are rebuilding, we're restructuring, and looking to make sure that community is completely involved in moving forward in the build out.
Absolutely. And we'll learn exactly how our community can help make that happen for, us. So thank you for sharing that, Shanequa. So we have Miracle. She's the youngest executive at Miss Abbie's Kids, which is an incredible feat. And wow, I'm just excited to hear about your role, Miracle. Can you share what you do at Miss Abbie's Kids?
So I create and build programs for people my age or even older, younger, that I know that other kids would like. That's kind of like my role in Miss Abbie's Kids. And by doing that, it kind of gives a foot forward into what you need to know when you're building programs for kids. So,
wow, thank you for that. And what has the center meant for you and other kids that you also work alongside with?
I made my bestest friends at the center and my worstest friends, my worst enemies in the center. It taught me a lot about how people really move, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the whole time, everything was just amazing. Like, I got to hang out with my friends more. I got to hang out with my siblings more. I got to see more of my family, because people, when they find out we have something, they want to come around and support. So the center being closed really impacted a lot of people, and I wish that it never closed.
I definitely want to emphasize, the importance of this center, and thank you for sharing that, Miracle. Look at how empowered our youth is. We're talking about someone. How old are you, Miracle?
I'm 11.
She's 11 years old, and she's in an executive position she's a program coordinator at the youth center. So that goes to show how empowered our children are in the Bronx and how intelligent they are. I know that you're also an entrepreneur. I read about you. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I started my company at the age of 6. It's called Style by Miracle, and I create bows, accessories, all type of accessories. Like there's nothing I don't make. But I started at the age of 6, and my mom has been like the biggest help in my company. And,
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, right. I use the proceeds from my company to feed the homeless.
Wow, that is incredible. Thank you for sharing, Miracle. And Shanequa, I want to go back to you. Can you share the importance that programming centers our youth and seniors in our community? What is the importance behind, that?
Absolutely. Well, what we know, well, first of all, I'm a 41-year-long resident of this community right here in Fordham and Decatur, here in the Bronx. And what I've seen over the years, particularly coming from a family that comes from down south, South Carolina and Jamaica, there are really strong ties when it comes to family. There's really high levels of respect that we have for our elders. And the lessons that you learn from the elders is what actually makes you the fruitful adult that you should be becoming. And so at Miss Abbie's Kids Community Center, one of the things that is really unique in this community center space is that it really ties together our elders and being able to teach these lessons. And a lot of the classes, the photography, the DJ class, gardening, arts and crafts, the financial literacy, martial arts, majority of the workshops were taught by elders to our young people. So it revitalizes our elders and it gives them strength again, and it gives them purpose, and it shows them that they don't have to be scared of the young people. And then the young people, it helps them develop deepen respect for our elders and places more value on the lessons that they can learn from them. And it teaches them to be respectful of our elders. So it really rebuilds that bridge between elder and youth. And when you have villages, because this is a village, right? Mm-hmm. But when you have villages that are steeped in that kind of crosshatch, that kind of, tightly woven fabric, then it makes the whole community stronger. And it increases, the sustainability of any community. So it was really beautiful to watch. I'm in a lot of different places. A lot of times I've never really seen arenas that are designed specifically for elders and youth, where somebody 3 years old and someone 83 years old is enjoying the same thing and engaged in the same thing. But our workshops and our programming, time and time again, prove that it can happen when it's fostered with love, intentionality, and strategy about knowing what our young people need and how to support our seniors at the same time.
Wow, I think that is incredibly powerful. That intergenerational just feeling that we can all partake in at Miss Abbie's Kids. So thank you for sharing that, Shanequa. So as we shared in the beginning, Miss Abbie's Kids is launching an exciting campaign to build a new community center. Can you tell us more about this?
Absolutely. So the building that we were in, unfortunately, wasn't 1,000% up to par. We made do with what we had, because in the Bronx, we've always had to make do with what we have. And particularly being an organizer, a Black woman organizer here in the Bronx, the level of supports, unfortunately, are a lot lower than even the support I get, around New York State or in different states in the country when working on projects. Our mission right now is to build a LEED green building that offers, one, not only all of our services and programs and workshops, but that can also be developed as micro enterprise, so that we are redefining what nonprofit work looks like, and that it doesn't have to be poor and needy, but that you can build infrastructure into what you're creating that will sustain monetarily. And the recording studio and the juice bar, which teaches health and how to access better food for our body in this food desert that we have going on, are all a part of that. So currently we are looking at a space and making sure that community is aware from the very, very beginning about what's happening, so that people have their own say-so in what their lives could look like, much like Miracle being the youth programs coordinator, which she's 11 now, at least for like the last 5 years. And it makes a big difference when you are designing programming for people that are led by the people that you're trying to impact. So it's a blessing. It's truly a blessing.
I think that all sounds incredible. And the center sounds like just euphoric for our community and so necessary, especially beyond these times during COVID-19. How can people learn more about Mac Community Center and support you during this time?
So people can learn more by directly coming to us and asking those questions, and seeing all of the different things that we have to offer, and figure out what role they want to play in a legacy that we can actually leave to our young people. Folks can contact me via email, shanequa.charles5@gmail.com. One of the things that's really, really important is being able to fundraise. And, in Miss Abbie's Kids, we've been really intentional about where we accept those kind of resources from, right? Money, particularly. We've been really, really diligent in making sure that our autonomy is kept in place. So, community support looks like donations. It looks like resources. It looks like, do you have a talent in a particular area that you really have a passion for young people and our seniors to either know or experience? And how can we bring that to the forefront and really center this around the entire community and the entire village being a part of it? The universe is working just the way it's supposed to in this moment. And I think that it's really important that we all get an opportunity to participate in something that has benefited and will continue to benefit the entire community. Our vision is Miss Abbie's Kids Community Center in all 4 corners of the Bronx, and in all 5 boroughs of New York City, and all across the 62 counties in New York State, that we are the most devastated and impacted, leading the way.
Thank you, Shanequa and Miracle, for joining us today, and best of luck on this venture to bring the community center to the Bronx. And we're here for you at BronxNet as well to support.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Shanequa Charles is the executive director of Miss Abbie's Kids, and Miracle Robinson is the youth program coordinator. That's all for our show today here on Open BXRX Tuesday. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and your safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.